彼の名はジャイロ。NGL の影のドンである。
Gyro is a name that many Hunter x Hunter fans may have forgotten, but his presence in the story is one that could reshape everything we know about the series. Behind the scenes, this character is quietly established as one of the most dangerous forces in the Hunter x Hunter universe, an undeniable threat whose true potential remains largely unexplored. Though Gyro's role has yet to fully unfold, the implications of his existence are far from insignificant. Today we will explore the depth of Gyro's character and the unsettling reality of what he may bring to the story's future.
虫けらは早めに駆除しろ。
それがジャイロの命令だ。
ジャイロ、何のことだ？
俺たちの王の名前だ。
Gyro is no ordinary character in Hunter x Hunter. He is a hidden threat that could alter the entire course of the story. While his name might not immediately resonate with many fans, the shadowy presence of this character suggests a terrifying future that may surpass even the most prominent threats the protagonists have faced so far. Although Gyro has remained somewhat in the background, his past and motivations hint at something far darker, and the implications of his return could be more significant than any other villain. I was even sure that Prince Benjamin wouldn't win the succession war, because he said he would rule the world, and we know that ruling and destroying the world is something tied to Gyro. At first glance, Gyro might appear as just another antagonist, a side character with little impact. However, a deeper look reveals that his backstory, his psychological scars, and his unrelenting ambition position him as one of the most dangerous and complex figures in the Hunter x Hunter universe. Gyro's journey is not one of typical villainy. He's not motivated merely by a thirst for power or revenge, but by a deeper, more philosophical desire to reshape the world and bring humanity to its knees. When examining his past, we begin to understand the roots of his malice. Gyro was a victim of neglect, abuse, and a lack of love from his father, an alcoholic who treated him as an object rather than a son. Yet despite the harshness of his upbringing, Gyro's belief in his father's love held firm until he was confronted with a brutal truth that shattered everything. This realization, combined with the psychological trauma he endured, would later fuel his transformation into one of the most dangerous figures in Hunter x Hunter. What makes Gyro so compelling is that his motivations are not just based on personal vendetta, but on a fundamental rejection of humanity itself. The universe in his eyes has shown no care for him, and he has come to believe that he must, in turn, spread the same indifference and destruction to the world. His descent into villainy is not an accident, but a conscious choice, a decision to fight against the very nature of human existence. This complex character has been built up over time through subtle hints and narrative fragments, yet his true role remains largely unexplored. His presence is not just an afterthought, it is a carefully crafted element that promises a much larger role in the future. Whether or not he will emerge as the final villain of Hunter x Hunter, one thing is clear. Gyro is not a character to be underestimated. Gyro's life took a dark turn during one fateful moment, a moment that would shape the rest of his existence. Up until then, despite the abuse and neglect, Gyro had still held on to the belief that his father's occasional acts of care, like the time he looked after him when he was sick, were signs of love. This misplaced perception kept him tethered to his humanity for a time. He was a child who, despite being starved for affection, chose to see the rare acts of kindness as enough to justify his father's cruelty. However, it was when Gyro was bullied that the veil of ignorance was finally lifted, and he was forced to face a painful truth. The bullying wasn't just physical, it was an emotional attack on the very core of his self-worth. His tormentor mocked him, telling him that it wasn't his father who cared for him when he was ill, but rather a stranger, a neighbour who had taken pity on him. This was the moment that shattered Gyro's illusion about his father's love. The final blow came when Gyro was being viciously beaten by the tormentor right in front of his father. Instead of rushing to his aid, his father simply looked at him and walked away.
確かに。
leaving him behind without a single word of comfort or help. This betrayal, this crushing moment of abandonment, was the point of no return for Gyro. In that instant, he realized that he was nothing more than a disposable tool in his father's eyes, and in the eyes of the world. No one cared about him, not his father, not anyone. He was completely alone, cast aside by the very people who should have loved and protected him. And it was at this moment that Gyro made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He was not human. He no longer belonged to the world of compassion and morality. What followed was a radical break from the values he had once held. Gyro, fueled by an overwhelming rage and a desire to exact revenge, snapped. He picked up a hammer and, in a cold, calculated act, ended his father's life. In doing so, he severed any remaining ties to the world of human empathy. No longer did he need to adhere to the rules of a society that had never shown him love or respect. This brutal act marked the moment when Gyro fully embraced his new identity, one born from rage, isolation, and the complete rejection of humanity. After killing his father, Gyro left the construction camp that had been his prison for so many years. With the money he stole from his father, Gyro set off into the world, a world that he now viewed as indifferent and hostile. From this point forward, his goal was simple: to spread evil and suffering. No longer bound by the constraints of human decency, Gyro was free to pursue his dark ambitions. The world in his eyes owed him nothing, and he intended to make it feel the same way. After leaving behind the trauma of his childhood and the murder of his father, Gyro set his sights on something far greater than mere survival. He didn't want just power. He wanted to reshape the world, to create something entirely new, something built on his vision of chaos and destruction. In his mind, humanity had betrayed him, and now it was his turn to take control of his own destiny. Gyro's path to power was swift and calculated. Within a short time, he went from being a lost and broken individual to the founder and ruler of the near-green Autonomous Life Zone, NGL, a secluded area completely cut off from the rest of the world. On the surface, NGL appeared to be a peaceful, idyllic place, one focused on farming, simplicity, and living in harmony with nature. But beneath this serene facade, Gyro was building something far darker. NGL, under Gyro's rule, became a hub of corruption and vice. It wasn't just a nation, it was a base of operations for an empire built on manipulation, control, and fear. Gyro didn't just rule the NGL, he controlled its underground market, ran a black market empire, and trafficked dangerous substances, including the infamous drug known as D2. Here you will know very well why Kate was terrified by the idea of merging NGL and chimera ants. What was truly terrifying about Gyro's rise was how quickly he did it. Within a span of a few years, he'd gone from being a broken child to the undisputed ruler of a nation. He not only established the NGL as a place of power, but he also made it a hub for his twisted ambitions, using it as the perfect base for spreading his influence. His genius was not just in his ability to gain power, but in how he maintained control over his kingdom, convincing his followers that his twisted vision of the world was the only truth worth believing.
俺の王はジャイロただ一人。貴様らは敵だ。
Gyro's time as the ruler of NGL came to an abrupt end with the invasion of the chimera ants. These terrifying creatures quickly wreaked havoc on the isolated region, and Gyro was killed in the process. However, his story doesn't end there. Unlike most other victims of the chimera ants, Gyro was not fully consumed by the queen ant's powers. Instead, Gyro's legacy endured. Unlike most of the victims consumed by the chimera ant queen, Gyro was not fully absorbed into the swarm. Instead, his legacy endured, and what followed was a transformation unlike any other. The queen, who absorbed the traits and memories of the organisms she consumed, gave birth to a new form of Gyro, one that retained his human memories and will. This was a truly unique phenomenon, as most chimera ants lost their previous identities after their rebirth. But Gyro, due to his unrelenting desire to spread evil and his powerful sense of self, managed to retain everything that defined him as a person, even after death. His reincarnation as a chimera ant was not merely a physical transformation, it was a profound shift that further amplified his twisted motivations. Now, Gyro not only possessed the physical strength of a chimera ant, but also the mind of the man who had been determined to bring chaos into the world. His psychological drive, fueled by years of suffering and a burning desire to destroy humanity, was not lost in his new form. Instead, it was enhanced. No longer constrained by the frailties of his human body, Gyro was free to pursue his ambitions with a newfound, terrifying power. His memories, his pride, and his unyielding hatred for humanity remained intact, making him one of the most dangerous beings in the world. His desire to spread evil across the globe was not only undeterred, but possibly even stronger than before, as he now had the power to do so. Gyro's return as a chimera ant could make him one of the most dangerous antagonists in Hunter x Hunter. His desire to spread evil, his unrelenting will, and his access to the power of Nen make him a terrifying figure. If Gyro ever learns how to harness Nen, he could become an unstoppable force, capable of wreaking havoc on the world.
思い出した。すげえ似てたんだ。ジャイロに。
Nen, as a power system that reflects a person's will and desires, could amplify Gyro's dark intentions to unprecedented levels. What makes Gyro even more terrifying is his absolute lack of empathy. Unlike other characters in the series who might have complex motivations or moral codes, Gyro is driven by one thing: destruction. His version of evil isn't just about power or revenge, it's about seeing the world burn. There's no joy or satisfaction for him in his actions, only a cold, calculated desire to watch humanity suffer. This makes him a unique and chilling character. His lack of personal pleasure from his actions is what sets him apart from other villains in Hunter x Hunter. Characters like Hisoka or Krollo may be morally ambiguous, but they still derive some form of satisfaction from their actions, whether it's chaos, revenge, or amusement. Gyro, however, does not seek joy in his destruction. His actions are driven purely by malice and an uncompromising belief that humanity must suffer. This makes him a force of pure evil, one that will stop at nothing to bring about the downfall of civilization. The true horror of Gyro lies not in his physical physical power, but in his ideological drive. He sees no value in human life or emotion. This kind of cold, detached malice is what makes Gyro such a frightening and unpredictable force. If Gyro manages to harness the power of Nen, it's difficult to imagine any character in the Hunter x Hunter universe being able to stop him. The sheer scale of his ambition and the purity of his evil are what make him not just a dangerous antagonist, but potentially the most terrifying villain the series has ever seen. One of the most intriguing aspects of Gyro's character is his potential connection with Gon. Although their paths have not yet crossed in the story, the narrator in the manga points out that Gyro was in the same city where Gon and Killua were training, but he left without meeting Gon. The narrator says, Gyro left the city and disappeared. Whether this was good luck or not, neither of them would know until they meet again. This subtle hint, added by Togashi, makes it clear that Gon and Gyro's eventual encounter is not just a possibility, but an integral part of the story's dramatic build-up. There are many commonalities between the two that make this idea particularly interesting. Both characters have complex relationships with their fathers. Gon, who sought to understand why his father left him to become a hunter, and Gyro, who suffered neglect and abuse from a father who never truly cared for him. What sets Gon apart from Gyro is that the environment in which Gon grew up was entirely different. Despite the absence of his father, Gon lived with his aunt Mito in a loving and supportive environment, something Gyro never had. This difference in upbringing had a significant impact on their characters. While Gyro was shaped by pain and cruelty, Gon was driven by hope and optimism. What makes the potential encounter between Gon and Gyro even more complex is that each of them possesses a deep understanding of what pain means. Gon might understand Gyro in some ways, as he went through a similar internal struggle after losing his friend Kite. On the other hand, Gyro, despite his evil nature, might see something of himself in Gon. It's almost like the relationship between Naruto and Nagato, or more accurately, Gyro could be seen as a villain who is a perfect match for Gon's character. Their confrontation will not be a traditional battle of strength. It will be a psychological battle between two individuals whose lives have been profoundly shaken. It is a battle of ideas.
人とは人間だ。
Gyro's role in Hunter x Hunter remains an unresolved mystery. Although much of his story has been hinted at throughout the series, his full impact on the plot remains unclear. As the story progresses, it becomes evident that Gyro is not just another villain, he is a constant threat lurking in the background, and his return could mark a pivotal turning point. The way his character has been developed suggests that he is meant for a role much larger than just being a typical antagonist. The amount of detail dedicated to Gyro's backstory, despite his limited direct involvement, raises questions about his potential future role. What is clear is that Gyro's motivations are not just personal. His desire to spread evil and chaos stems from his belief that humanity itself is flawed. He views the world as broken, and rather than trying to fix it, he seeks to watch it fall apart. This philosophy makes him one of the most dangerous threats the characters may face in the series. Despite Gyro's current absence from the forefront of the story, there are many unanswered questions that remain. Will he return to become the ultimate adversary for Gon and the others? Or will his story intertwine with the events of the Dark Continent? Gyro's return could represent a turning point in the plot, not only in terms of physical battles, but also in the ideological and philosophical struggles that may unfold between him and Gon.